2013 City Council meeting to order. And Mayor Turley is absent this evening, so I'm stepping in to his place this evening. And with that, Suzanne, would you take roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Turley, Rivetto.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Harvey. Here. Schaefer.
Here.
Smith.
Here. And would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? So we have a couple presentations this evening, and I don't know if Mr. Hinman is here.
I don't believe he's arrived yet. He's literally minutes out.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I don't know him. So what we're going to do is go ahead and switch, and we're going to ask Ms. Alyssa Meyer. She has a presentation for us this evening as it relates to her work with the Division of Wildlife concerning bears in our city. I know that they've eaten out of my trash can before, so I look forward to this. Welcome, Alyssa. I see your dad's out there, so.
All right. Well, hello. My name's Alyssa Meyer. I have lived in Woodland Park my entire life, and I think as a product of this environment, I've wanted to become a wildlife biologist since I was 9. When I was deciding for the classes I would take my senior year, I found out that I'd ran out of biology classes, so I asked around and I found out about this class called Senior Seminar. It's basically an independent study that it also includes community service. And so I contacted Tanya Sharp with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, wondering if she could think of any projects that I could do for her. She responded, wondering whether I wanted to study the bear interactions in town. I immediately accepted. I began my project this year by going out and surveying all of our local restaurants on their bear activity. I asked them a series of questions. These are the questions. At the first restaurant I surveyed, I made the mistake of asking if the restaurant had a bear problem, to which the owner immediately replied, "It's not a problem." And it never occurred to me that not everyone in town thought that bears getting into their trash was a problem. Another restaurant I surveyed told me a story of a bear getting into their dumpsters and how they just watched from inside, thinking how cool it was that a bear was there, and they were taking pictures and videotaping it. And then I asked them, well, did you contact Colorado Parks and Wildlife or the police department? And they said, should we have? From my surveys, I realized that not everybody saw bears getting into their trash as a problem, and that most of the time the novelty of bears being there was worth more than the trouble to call Colorado Parks and Wildlife. About a third of the restaurants reported having bear activity to me, but only one restaurant ever reported it to Colorado Parks and Wildlife or the police department. At the end of August, a bear perished after being treed in the tree in front of Gateway. In response, I contacted all the elementary schools asking if they wanted me to give a bear aware presentation to the kids. Columbine and Gateway replied, so I spent the next few months making a presentation that teach the kids about bear biology, why bears get into trash, and what happens to bears that get into trash. One of the first questions I asked was, what do bears eat? The immediate response was trash. The kids connected bears with trash because that's how it's always been. Bears have always gotten into a trash, and that's just how it is. They didn't know any better. Then to demonstrate why bears got into the trash, I chose 2 kids from the audience, and I had one of them be a bear that was living naturally, and another be a bear that was living off of trash. Previously, I'd filled a box with all my old shredded math homework, and I hid a bunch of Hershey's Kisses inside. There are about 8 of them in there. So I asked the kid that was living naturally to forage in this box that was the forest for 30 seconds to see how many chocolates they could find. The best result I got was they found 4. Then I turned to the other kid that was a bear living off of trash, and I handed them a baggie that had filled with chocolates. It was 3 times the amount the other kid had found, and I just said, here, there you go, have some chocolates. And that's how a bear feels finding trash. They don't need to spend any time or any energy to get the same amount of food a bear tries to get for days on end. And so I turned to the audience and asked them which would they rather do, forage in my box of old math homework or have me hand them chocolates. And almost everyone except for one sarcastic kid said, hand me some chocolates. All right. Next, I worked on mapping the calls received by Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Woodland Park Police Department. 80 nuisance bear calls were received this year. However, I believe that most of bear sightings and incidents go unreported. 15% of these calls went to Columbine Village. There, they spent thousands of dollars to make a trash enclosure that doesn't keep out bears. As a result, they spent thousands more on property damage. 7% of these calls went to Micah Lane from residents living within 100 yards of each other. 3 of these calls came from the same house, having the same problem consecutive nights. A bear was getting into their garage multiple times. 6% of these calls went to North Pine Street. The bear was getting there on the night before trash day because people were putting their trash out the night before. And 5% of these calls went to Paradise Circle. And the interesting part is that over 17% of sightings went to Woodland Avenue and areas around Woodland Avenue. Now, because Woodland Avenue is so close to downtown, and from the knowledge I gained from my surveys, I believe that this is proof that bears are getting to the dumpsters downtown and then are escaping through these neighborhoods. From these calls, over $5,000 was spent in officers' time alone. This is a little screenshot of my Excel spreadsheet. The only thing I can really account for is how much we pay officers for their time that they spend responding to the call, not the damage caused, not benefits or anything like that. I can't even begin to estimate the cost that bears caused in damage this year. Then I began researching. I looked at other towns and how they dealt with bear interactions. I looked at what it would take for the city to get bear-proof containers and what makes something bear-proof, and I began thinking. Everything I'd done and learned has only reinforced that we have a bear problem in this town, though it seemed that not everybody thinks of it that way. Here in Woodland Park, we like our lifestyle, we like our forest, and we like our wildlife. Then why are we so willing to jeopardize it for the sake of our own carelessness and our own time? An unhealthy bear population relies on trash. That is what we have created here in Woodland Park, bears that are habituated to trash. A habituated bear is a dangerous bear. They stick around town and are near humans. The likelihood that an incident is going to happen is so high that it's almost inevitable. This bear right here is sleeping behind Big O. That's where this picture was taken. In order to protect ourselves and to protect the bears from each other, I propose 3 steps. The first and most important is that we create an education task force that is composed of volunteers concerned about bear interactions in Woodland Park. Some of the responsibilities of this task force would be to educate residents on bear-human conflict, bear behavior, and solutions and alternatives to the conflict. In Whistler, Canada, a Bear Smart program was implemented. Some of the tasks of the Bear Smart program achieved include a midnight raid in which volunteers went out the night before trash pickup and slapped a Garbage Kills Bears bumper sticker on any trash can they found the night before trash pickup. This act was determined to have cut the number of trash cans available in the next raid by 50%. Over the years the Bear Smart program has existed, Whistler has seen a 75% drop in nuisance bear calls. Similarly, Durango has a Bear Smart Durango program. They have created a Be Bear Smart Week, worked with the city of Durango to obtain bear-proof containers for residents in city parks, initiated a volunteer program for informational material distribution, and created an elementary educational outreach. These are just some of the examples of educational programs already created. Education is the first and most important step. The more people that are aware that there is a problem and know what to do about it, the more likely people are to act. Second, we begin enforcing the laws already in place. This is a Woodland Park ordinance on trash. The bottom part's the most important, that we store garbage in a manner that prevents animals' entry. The city of Telluride is actually in the process of creating such an ordinance. Telluride recognized the problem is derived from open or unsecured trash containers and planned to fine citizens to stop that problem. While the law already exists in Woodland Park, it is not a priority of our officers. With everything else our officers have to do, they understandably don't have the time to keep track of people's trash. However, should we enforce these laws, the revenue from the fines would help fund educational programs and go towards purchasing bear-proof containers. Third, we provide opportunities for residents to find alternatives to trash disposal. This can be achieved with something as simple to a link on the city's website to bear-proof container companies. That's one, for instance, barracuda.com. That bear-proof container right there is $70, and I think it's a 30-gallon. So it's not too steep, and they've been proven to be pretty bear-resistant. The most important thing the city can do is to spread the word of the bear problem and provide information. What I am asking of the city is to provide a means to organize and implement these steps. As just a senior in high school, I realize my limitations. At the end of the summer, I'll be leaving to go to CSU Fort Collins. However, before then, I hope to raise the awareness of our bear problem and create the first stepping stones to bear-human coexistence. Thank you.
Thank you. Alyssa, thank you very much. I don't know if there's members of council that have any questions or comments that they want to make. Terry?
Yeah, Alyssa, great job, and congratulations on first of all, graduating high school, because that's an accomplishment. But going on to Fort Collins, that's great.
Thank you.
Your field, and I got to see this presentation the other night, and we had some pretty good dialogue about it, and pretty much came up with about the best thing that we can do is to educate them, because we have a problem. We had, was it 4 road kills last year?
Yes.
And that's on the highway, and unfortunately, we're human beings, and I love the phrase "you can't fix stupid." And we're still going to have we're going to have people that feed our wildlife. We're going to have people that don't pay attention to any city ordinance and put the trash out. So I'm very, very proud that you as a citizen has taken this on and working on the educational part of it, because that's all we can really do, is let them know. Sooner or later, it won't become a serious problem until one of our citizens get attacked or eaten or killed by a bear, and then it will become a serious problem. And people may wake up and when they go to the grocery stores, they don't pick up an extra box of Twinkies for the bears that come by. So anyway, thank you very, very much, and thanks again, and congratulations.
Thank you again.
Anyone else? Bob?
Thank you. Yeah, when we moved here about 7.5 years ago, we weren't educated. We love to see bears, but they're not very frequent that you see them, actually. Maybe once or twice a year. But we learned very quickly not to put bird seed feeders out during the fall and spring, and don't put your trash out the night before. Now, when they're hibernating, you can put your trash out the night before, but that type of thing. So I think if you're not stupid, then you'll learn fast by experience. But we certainly do need an education program, because the last thing we want is to see a bear killed because it's put away because they are a nuisance. And I hope that the one at Gateway, there was no other alternative than having to put it down, because we moved to Woodland Park because we'd like to be near wildlife, and so we want to protect them. I don't know that we need protection that much. Our neighbor was out doing their gardening last summer. They heard a noise behind them, and a bear was just walking by about 10 feet behind them, going to the next garbage can. So, but anyway, thank you very much for your presentation, and I agree with your recommendations. Thank you.
Carol?
Well, my question would be, again, thank you, Alyssa. That was a great presentation, very professional. Can we help, Alyssa? Is it appropriate for us to add something to our own website, the city website, for bear awareness?
Absolutely. And I'm going to look to Sally and to Debbie. I think there's a pamphlet that we hand out new residents if we have an opportunity about living in the mountains, and there's, I think, information about that. If we don't do that, that's certainly something we can do, and I think there's an opportunity for us to provide an education link on our website. So we'll work with Tanya from CPW, or C, whatever it's called these days, and get something so that we can provide that education for folks who are new and are folks that have already been here. I think you need to put your trash in year-round, because if it's not bears, it could be wild dogs. So, yes, we can follow up on that.
Great. Thanks, Alyssa.
Anyone else? Alyssa, thank you very much. I have a little gift for you. Before I give this to you, last summer I had a bear come into my garage in the evening. I left the garage door up for just a little while. Neighbor called me, drug the bag of dog food out, ate the dog food, and then also took a swipe at one of my dogs, and it kind of punctured it. And then the next day was sleeping underneath my deck, just hanging out. So luckily my family was in Florida, so my little kids weren't around, thankfully. But it is a problem, and obviously we probably need to do some things to make folks aware. So thanks again. Hang on one second. So I'm going to give you one of these mayor's pens. They're very hard to come by, so thank you very much. Great job. Thank you for your work.
So much. Do you want me to just leave this slide up?
Yes, you're good. Thank you.
That's a nice slide. All right, so we're gonna go back to the presentation before. I believe that Mr. Paul Hinman has made it. The traffic was something coming up the pass tonight. I can attest to that. And anyway, so Mr. Hinman is here tonight from the Colorado chapter of the American Public Works Association, and is going to speak on the recent award that the city received related to the Shady Lane stormwater project.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my name is Paul Heineman. I'm the chapter delegate for the Colorado chapter of the American Public Works Association, which is an organization that most of the public works departments throughout the state and throughout the nation are members of. And once a year, we ask for people to submit their projects, and then we have an awards banquet where we present the winners or the projects of the year to the people that are the projects and really the communities and the public works people that perform these projects and really are innovative and show creativity in doing these projects. So often the public works field goes unnoticed, which is a good thing. When things are working correctly and the phone doesn't ring, that's the way that we like it. That means that we're doing our job. But that doesn't happen by accident. It happens through a group of very dedicated professionals, as you know, to keep the traffic lights on, to keep the water running downhill, and to keep the cars moving. This project was won an award for the it's for the engineering and construction management category that we have, and this for small communities, and this was for the entire state of Colorado, so we had several entries. And the Shady Lane Storm Sewer project was chosen because of its numerous utility conflicts that you guys had to go through in doing this project, and then also working with the businesses and the citizens as you perform this project. And doing all of that, the project was completed within budget and within schedule. So with that said, I'd like to congratulate you on behalf of the Colorado chapter, to you and to your consultant URS, and the contractor, which was Lamb Plumbing and Excavating. So with that, congratulations, and I believe there's a plaque around someplace. Here it is. And I'll just go ahead and read it. American Public Works Association, Colorado Chapter 2012, Public Works Project Award, Engineering Construction Management, Small Community. City of Woodland Park, the Shady Lane Storm Sewer Project. So congratulations. I'd like to shake somebody's hand and present this to you. So.
I think you can shake Bill's there.
Very good.
I don't know if council has any questions. I have a comment I'd like to make, or no? Paul, I as a civil engineer and I'm very aware of what the American Public Works Association does. I know how difficult it is to do a project like this, and really appreciate you coming up tonight. Appreciate the recognition for the city as well as for URS. And you know, it's interesting. Just today, outside my office, where they were doing some directional drilling, they hit our fiber optic line coming into the building, and you know, no phones, no internet, no nothing. And you know, somebody asked me, well, don't they know where that stuff is? And I said, sort of. So you know, exactly. A lot of times, you know, you don't know what you've got until you open it up and you actually see. And I know this project went really well, and kudos to everyone involved, and thanks again for coming up this evening.
You bet. My real job is I'm the executive director of the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District in the Denver metro area. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a regional flood control district for the metro area up there in Denver, and we have 40 local governments within our boundaries. We do a lot of projects like this, so I definitely know what you're talking about and the issues that you ran across. So congratulations.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks again. All right, moving on with our agenda this evening, additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda. Suzanne, I don't know if we have any.
We do not.
Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar. We have 2 items on the consent calendar tonight. One is to approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2013 regular meeting, and the other is to approve an application for Banana Belt Liquors for renewal of a retail store liquor license. Any questions or comments from council? A motion?
Making a motion to approve both.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Suzanne?
Rivetto,
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, moving along, we have no unfinished business this evening or ordinances on initial posting. We're going to move into the public hearing segment of our meeting. And as I open that up and we move to 9A, which is approve or consider ordinance 1184 for conditional use permit to change an existing commercial use to single-family residence on the property located at 116th North Center Street. Before we move into that, I'd like to read something into the record and remind council as it relates to our iPads and the other various electronic devices that we have, that during public hearings as it relates to quasi-judicial matters, council members' use of electronic devices to access the materials relevant to the public hearing before us. Be assured that it is a common practice of the city council that these devices are not being used for texting, emailing, or other communications during public hearings. So with that, I'd like to invite Ms. Parnell to the dais or to the podium and for your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, council. Tonight I'm here to provide you further details on a conditional use permit for property located at 116 North Center Street. And the applicants, Amir and Laura Safayan, are the owners of this property. Amir is here with us this evening, and he would like to speak in the public portion of this proceeding. So if you have any questions specific for him, he is here to answer those questions as well. This is a conditional use permit request to take what has been used for the Teller County Waste commercial business office with 4 employees and change that use into a single-family residence use. And as you can see, this particular property is currently falling into the commercial business district zone, and I've indicated on this slide in a circle, red circle, the property of this applicant. And in the current Title 18 code, when you're taking a central business district from commercial to single-family residential use, you need to go through the conditional use process. So that's what's brought us here tonight. This next slide here shows you all of the various businesses, and it's all businesses that surround their property. The property is again circled in red for you to see. This is an aerial view. A couple of note, we have Hot Heads Day Spa up to the north of their property. We have another office building to the south. There's a CenturyLink transfer station to the west. All personal services in this area. One of the requirements of a conditional use permit process is to provide adjacent property notification 10 days prior to the first public hearing. And the areas that are shown in this particular map, highlighted in green, are those that we sent adjacent property notification letters to. And I've also gone ahead and noted in the pop-ups here those that we received responses from in regards to just the adjacent properties. We did receive a verbal notification on the 7th from Hot Heads. They expressed some concerns for parking as well as noise issues. They followed this after the Planning Commission with a letter, which I think I've presented as Exhibit B in your packets. And also the other adjacent property owner, Mr. Derek Reed, provided us with a written correspondence expressing his support for the change in use. This next slide depicts the site plan of this particular property, and the keynotes, the key takeaways from this are the parking, really. The front of the property faces the North Center Street, and there's some public parking at the front, and then of course you have this nice long sidewalk that goes all the way to the end, and in the rear of this property there is a 2-car parking pad that's private parking for this property. And then there is an alley at the very back as well that's through access. There are 11 criteria to which we must minimally meet and in order to approve a conditional use permit found in Title 18. I'm going to briefly cover what those are and just explain the analysis portion. The first criteria is actually 2 parts. So I've broken it up as such in my presentation. The first thing that it needs to demonstrate is that there's a demonstrated direct need to having this change of use at this proposed location. And for this, I would like to refer to you to the comprehensive plan that took place in 2010. And I know you can't read this, so I'm going to blow it up a bit in the next slide. But just to show you that the comprehensive plan description found in Appendix F actually talks to this particular scenario. First, just want to cover with you that it describes the purpose of the comprehensive plan map to provide direction and flexibility for future development or redevelopment and to anticipate any new uses. Moving on further to that second paragraph that I highlighted in that document, it also describes mixed use, which is pink, and I will depict that in a map later on in the presentation for you with this site on it, and describes this mixed use as being suitable for residential and commercial and/or commercial. These areas that include existing central business district where the city desires to increase residential development. And again, this is all found in your Appendix F. The second part to criteria 1 is talking to being able to adequately mitigate any measures or lessen the impacts. So the first thing we do is we take the use that's being proposed and we determine what sort of impacts that would create. There were 4 that we looked at for this particular change in use. And the first one was parking. And of course, this was quickly found to comply because we have that 2-car parking pad in the rear of this property that's their private parking, as well as the public parking at the front of this property, which could be used for visitors. And the second one that we found had to do with traffic. And in looking at this a little bit further, when it was the Teller County Waste Office, there were 4 employees, and it's said to be 3 cars on a daily basis. On top of this, there were daily visits for paying bills from customers that use the parking in the front. In going to a residential use, clearly Amir has laid out in his testimony, also found in Exhibit D, I believe, he talks that this would be no more than 2 to 3 residents, perhaps a couple, maybe a child, no more than that. So probably 2 cars, 2 vehicles. So that equates to less traffic, less visitors, and a lower frequency. And then the next one was noise. And of course, this area is known for the farmers market. Just up the street is Henrietta Avenue, and in the summer months, we have the farmers market. There's several events that take place. There's also local bars and pubs that create noise. So we really didn't find any noise that would be unique to this change in use that wasn't already existing. However, when we did receive correspondence from Hotheads, Miss Lynn Tatro, who also provided us a letter explaining her concerns for noise, we did revisit this a bit, and in talking with the applicant, he has addressed the fact that he will add contract language that's specific to this location, addressing any noise issues that there may or may not be. And also, he has provided us with an overwhelming amount, nearly a dozen letters and testimonies received to this date from various past tenants, present tenants, attesting to his responsiveness, his willingness to address issues, particularly calling out noise issues in similar instances to this. And he's got a good reputation for that based on these letters. So I would refer you to Exhibit D, and then also if you have questions about that, you can speak with either of them. The fourth one was aesthetics, and this really related to, does it blend with the environment? The stucco, the color scheme blends very well. The second criteria that we need to look at is whether or not it endangers the public health or welfare. This is a single-family home. It's a low impact, so it complies. The third one is whether or not it's going to injure vicinity property values. We actually felt that they would be utilizing the vicinity services, so this would have the opposite effect. So we really felt that this would comply as well. This next one relates to whether it would create harmony with the local area. This goes back again to the comprehensive plan. This is all the vision for this area is to be pedestrian friendly. Residents living in this area that would utilize and frequent those businesses, and we felt that it complied here as well. Criteria 5, and this is that map that I promised to show you a little bit later, has to do with conforming with city plans. And this is a picture, a snapshot of the comprehensive future plan map. And I've shown you the site here, which is that mixed use, again defined as entailing both commercial and residential uses. Criteria number 6 talks to conforming to city regulations. And I would like to point out at this point that one of the first things that this applicant did was to schedule a SMART meeting. These are meetings that our planning department puts together twice a month with the building department to meet building code, to discuss building codes and fire codes. And so all those key players come to this meeting. So they have a firm grasp on what they need to do to meet those particular requirements. Criteria number 7 talks to accommodating traffic that may be generated by this change in use. And we actually felt because the inhabitants would go down, again, that there would not be as much traffic generated. Criteria number 8 talks about the appropriate regard to topography and any environmentally significant features. This is actually more relevant to a new development in this area, and this would have been considered in the original design. We felt it complied. Criteria number 8 talks to having adequate water supply, addressing waste disposal and protection methods, as well as water drainage. And this was internally reviewed. One of the review points was the utilities director, Mr. Kip Wiley. And this particular property is on city water and wastewater. The effects to air quality would be very minimal at the size of this single-family home. It is just under 800 square feet. So. And there was one minor issue that was pointed out, and that's a sharing of a sewer service line with the picture of this house here at 114 North Center Street, which is directly adjacent to the south of this property, and that's with Mr. Derek Reed. And as part of the conditions going into the Planning Commission, we had set a condition that they come into an agreement, a formal agreement on how they would handle the financial aspects and maintenance of that service line since they shared it. And they were to address this by entering into a signed agreement, and they've actually done that since. So that's already been taken care of on the 23rd of February. Criteria number 10 talks to not unduly increasing public danger. Again, it's going to be a remodel. It's going to comply with international fire code standards. Criteria number 11 may be required to provide architectural design schemes, amenities, and any other aesthetic enhancements or measures that they may need to take. Already, this property blends very well with the surrounding environment, and it's a stucco style that blends. So staff feels that this meets all 11 criteria. There was that one condition, but it's been fulfilled, so there really are no conditions to include. We would recommend approval of Ordinance 1184. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions of staff before we move to the applicant? Gary? No, thank you.
The present owner is going to go into in the contract, a rental contract for the leasee who's going to lease it.
Could you step up?
Put different clauses in there relative to the concerns that we had, parking, noise, and all that stuff. What about that building is transferred and sold? Do those agreements still go in effect? Because if it's sold, if he sells it, somebody else takes it over, are they obligated to continue those conditions and those agreements?
No, I doubt that would happen, but I would think that the applicant can answer the questions from his perspective as to what he wants to include. He could probably tell you how long he's owned this property.
It's kind of irrelevant because I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow, and I don't think he knows what's going to happen.
It would depend on the owner, the new owner, I believe.
Yeah, as I said, so you can't
it's
really,
their choice.
You can't really say something hard. In fact, that those conditions are going to continue
It's a good
in the
point.
future if the ownership of the property transfers to somebody else.
I would agree with that.
John?
Did the city staff agree with the agreement that was made regarding the wastewater shared?
Yes, that was sent up to utilities on that same day, and they felt that it was adequate.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
Are there any other single-family residences in that area?
In that area, no, they're not.
This would be the only one.
This would be the first one initiated in that area.
Terry? Well, we're going to ask you to come up in a minute, and you can. No
Okay,
problem.
we'll let the applicant talk to that then.
Yep, Terry.
And this is just kind of for me, and I'm pretty familiar with that building, Lisa. But what was the building actually built for? When it was, do we
What
know?
year was it
Was
built?
it built as a?
I believe in the 70s. Yes, in the
Was
70s.
built as a home?
Do you? And maybe the applicant can answer that as well. but I believe it was in the 70s.
So it was built for a home originally?
Yes, in doing the internal reviews, I actually had a comment come back that they believed that this was a residence at one time. So,
Okay.
So it ended up in the commercial zone and we zoned it.
right.
Any other questions of staff before we ask the applicant to come forward? No? Thank you, Lisa. Very thorough. Amir, if you'd please come forward. I'll probably make a mistake on your last name. So if you could say your name and address for the record, I'd appreciate it. And then
Amir Safayan, 1314 North Tejon Street, Colorado Springs, 80903.
Thank you very much.
Believe it or not, we had a bear a couple doors down from us several years back. My wife said, I remember her telling me when we moved downtown, she said, at least we're not going to be anywhere where there's wildlife. Our neighbor came knocking on our door, said, you got to come and see this. And there was a yearling or something. It was great. I gave a lot of letters that Lisa included that I think you have a package, probably great reading tonight to put you to sleep. But there were several others that were submitted after the cutoff, and this is one from Lamb Plumbing, and Deb was nice enough to give me 10 copies of it to submit to you guys long-term. I don't like to use the word tenants. These folks are our partners. I sincerely consider the people in our buildings as partners. Having said that, our approach is collaborative, and we're long-term investors. I've never flipped a property in my life. I'm 51. I've been doing this since I was about 18, and not once have I ever flipped a property. And I'm actually proud of that, because a lot of people over the years say, oh, you make a lot of money flipping properties. I'm not interested in it. We're long-term investors, period. And, it works long-term. It truly does. Even in this crappy economy, it works. It's getting better. So I'm here to answer any questions. We're pretty, your specific question, sir, is one that I asked as well. I thought the conditional use was per owner. So I was under the impression that when I go to sell it one day, if we do, that person would have to go back and say, hey, I want to get a conditional use.
Yeah, I believe that the conditional use permit runs with the land.
Okay.
Until such time as the intended or the use that's being, in this case, if it was residential, if this was approved, when there's a break in service or break of use for some period of time. I don't know exactly how long that is.
I asked the same question. It's a valid question. It is a valid question, because ultimately, look, I can tell you anything. The folks that wrote these letters that's their opinion of us and the way we function. I don't know any of you folks, so frankly, with all due respect, until your actions show me otherwise, I'm not going to believe a whole lot. I'm a pretty skeptical person. So when I say, hey, we're great landlords and, we're going to do the right thing, well, okay, prove it, ultimately. So the purpose of these letters, I hope, would be to convey that when we had a noise issue, for example, and we've got Sandra here who was associated with that noise issue, we brought a tenant in, and she quickly imposed upon two neighboring tenants, and these are in our main building, Pikes Peak Office Center, right behind Starbucks with all the solar panels. I mean, I got a call right away saying, we got a problem. So I called up the new tenant. I said, you have a problem. You're imposing upon some existing tenants that have been here longer than you and have some seniority, and you got to resolve it and play nice, And at our expense, we sealed up a couple of doors that were, all these spaces have been reworked and things over time. And so there was these two doors. And so, with a door, naturally it's not sealed. So we removed the doors, insulated it, drywall, texture painted at our cost, and made it pretty clear to that tenant that she has to understand that she's impacting. And God bless her. She had a kid. She didn't have the money for daycare. She was bringing her kid into the office. what do you do? So it worked out, though. Ultimately, they got along. They resolved the issues. We got involved. And Sandra, who's a therapist who needs quiet, she was resolved. One of her neighbors who wrote a letter in is a massage therapist, needs quiet. She got her issue resolved. And on the other side, there was a spa where they do manicure and, massage therapy and all that stuff. And once again, they need quiet, and we resolved the issue. So, sir.
Yeah. And most of these are not really of, I don't think that's our concern, whether there are noisy neighbors or something in a building, because you have ordinances that are in place, prohibit noise at certain hours. It's just basically what you do as a landlord with tenants, dealing with and resolving issues, as you talked about. And as far as selling the property and whether or not the next owner has got to comply with this, like for instance in parking, it's a small apartment. There's two parking lots already there, which is probably more than we get on some apartment buildings, and so I don't see that as a problem. But I think that as far as noise is concerned, if future tenants make noise, that's something that you can give the police a call about. These people making noise or something. So I think we have existing ordinances in place that would be able to control behavior that's unacceptable. So I have basically no problem with this.
Well, I think what I would say is if there's questions that we want to ask of the applicant, now's the time. I have a number of people that are signed up and people that want to speak. And
okay, sorry.
Before we get into deliberating on what we think, I think it's appropriate now that we ask questions and then move on to the public comment period. So, Bob, I don't know if there's anything else or any questions you have of the applicant.
No.
Okay, Terry?
Oh, I'm not too much concerned about the noise at all, because that back door we're looking at is probably just about 100 feet from the back door of the ute, so.
Well, the reason we're doing this is because at 3 a.m. someone broke in and set fire to the second floor.
However,
from the ute.
And Sally, correct me on this. Doesn't the front of that house get blocked during the farmer's market, or is it further up the street? I mean, they come all the way down to the alley, I think. And so ingress and egress from the back, though, they would still be accessible through the alley, but not off of Henrietta. They'd have to come out to the alley and turn back the other direction. Isn't that correct? And that would, I'd hate to see a lease it to somebody and all of a sudden, they didn't understand that all this commotion is going to happen for an extended period of time throughout the spring, summer, and fall, because farmer market is going to be in their front yard.
And the person that would live there is someone who's going to appreciate that. I mean, I don't think someone's going to move there for peace and quiet, personally. I don't. It's an urban setting. You don't live there to, hear the wind rustling through the trees. You do that because you want to walk to the bar or walk down to one of the services that are nearby.
How long have you had that?
2005.
Okay.
Jay's been our only tenant, and that call was an unfortunate one. He moved out that day, and I've wished him well, gave him a full security deposit refund, and have continued to have conversation with Jay. I consider him a friend. I'm sad to lose him. Frankly, we wouldn't be doing this had it not been for that break-in. And we're not pursuing that gentleman who broke into the place either. I mean, he's unemployed. He was drunk. What good's it going to do for us to pursue, damages against that guy?
Other questions of the applicant? No? Okay. Amir, thank you so much. We may have some other questions later as we get into further discussion. At this point in time, I'd like to open up the public comment period. I do have a number of people signed up. Kenny and Lynn Taco, or sorry, I'm sure I messed that up. With the last name like Smith, I don't always pronounce names all that well. So if you please come forward and state your name for the record and your address, please.
our business address that we're referring to?
That'll be fine.
My name is Lynn Tatro. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Our business is Hothead Studio and Day Spa, located at 118 North Center Street. And I have been in the salon industry for 28 years, and Kenny and I have been a part of this community for 21 years. We were very excited to be able to open up Hotheads after residing and participating in this community for so long. We opened up Hotheads about a year and a half ago. And the thing that attracted us to this building, and we looked at many, many buildings over the course of several years. This was a very long process. And what attracted us to this building is that it is in the most quiet part of the business district. And we didn't have Highway 24 noise. It wasn't in a mixed-use district. And I should probably clarify that noise is a huge, huge concern for us in our business. And we, criteria 1 slide that was shown, if you look at it closely, we are on 0 lot line. And in addition to having a salon, which includes hair and nail services, we do have a day spa, which includes massage and skincare services. Even though I've been in the industry for 28 years, I still hired a salon planner to help us lay this out properly, because noise is just a huge concern of ours. So we hired a salon planner. It was laid out, and I believe you have our floor plan in your packet. It was laid out very specifically to minimize any noise. Kenny actually knocked out the wall that was there existing in the building, and he did that so that could include extra insulation. We knew we would incur additional inspections. We would have additional expenses for asbestos testing, but we knew that was critical to do because we had to soundproof those rooms. And our treatment room windows, and we purposely put the treatment rooms on that end of the building that is next to 116 Center Street, the building that's up for conditional use. We purposely put them at that end of the building because that is the most quiet end of the building. That's on Center Street, which is a one-way street, not very heavily traveled. We put our hair and nail services on the opposite end of the building, which is on Henrietta Street, which does see more traffic. So again, all of that was taken into consideration when we laid out our treatment rooms. So the treatment rooms, we do not have air conditioning. In the summertime, we have our windows open. And with the 0 lot line, the way 116 Amir's building is situated, it sits back pretty far. So the front yard of 116 basically is directly outside of our treatment room windows. So our concern truly is a noise concern. If a single family moves in, if it's turned into a single family residence, our concern is that there will be children, and kids make noise. There will be dogs, and dogs make noise. And Saturdays are probably our most requested days for our massage and skincare treatments. If there's barbecues or gatherings, the only place that 116 could accommodate that would be in the front yard. That would be directly outside of our treatment room windows, and all that noise would funnel right into our massage and skincare rooms. I was told that there are noise ordinances in place for that at the first hearing. However, there's nothing illegal about having a barbecue or a gathering on a Saturday afternoon. There's nothing illegal about kids playing in the front yard. There's nothing illegal about dogs barking. Of course, if it's excessive, there would be. So our concerns, I believe, are very valid. As in regards to farmers market, that's a couple hours a day, 1 day a week. And in all honesty, nobody's out there screaming and yelling. Everybody's very mellow and mild at farmers market. So in all honesty, we really don't have an issue with farmers market. In response to the bars that are up the street, honestly, we cannot hear that noise. Those bars are over a block and a half away from us. We're not concerned with the noise from the bars. We're only concerned about the building that is directly next door to us, which is, like I said, on 0 lot line. So we have invested our entire life savings in this building. We've done a lot of homework, a lot of research. We paid a lot of money to ensure that it was set up properly. And our biggest concern is we do have some parking concerns. We do have, and not to beat a dead horse, but noise is truly a concern of ours. And if our spa business is negatively impacted, that does account for about 50% of our overall revenue, our business would be devastated. It would just be absolutely decimated. And about 60% of our overall business does travel up the pass from Colorado Springs. So we're pretty proud of the fact that we do bring people up from El Paso County. We're partnered with several businesses in Woodland Park, and our clients are aware of that, and they do feed the other businesses and patronize them. So we're very proud of the fact that we work very closely with other businesses in our community, and our clients do utilize their services. So we feel like we do bring a lot to the community. One of the other things that was brought up at the first hearing is that there's not a lot of affordable housing. So my concern was, why would you put a existing business in jeopardy at the sake of housing one family? And I was told that there's just not a lot of affordable housing in our community. And we did a little research, and we went to move2.com, and it showed that 81% of the rentals in Woodland Park are under $1,000 a month. So that took us, we thought that was true. There's not a lot of affordable housing, but we did actually find that was a pretty big number. And I believe it was 37% were under $600 a month. So our argument was, again, why would you jeopardize a thriving, existing business that contributes a lot to the community at the sake of housing one family, and when we believe there's ample housing available. We had referred what we consider a viable commercial tenant to, I don't want to say your last name wrong, Safians. And we found this commercial tenant in less than a week. And again, it's a upstanding community member whose name I'm not going to mention. But she made the phone call to inquire about renting this building out for her business. And she was told that the decision has already been made, that this was going to be a residential building, and it was a done deal. So we were taken aback by that, that's what she was told. And we thought we were kind of helping out. It would be a win-win for everybody. We don't have to deal with family noise. Here's a commercial tenant. Here we go. And that's apparently what she was told, that the decision's already been made. And just for the record, I do want to say we're very proud to have been voted the Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year. Thank you, Deb, if she's still here. So we're very proud of that, and we really are excited with where our business is after only a year and a half. And again, if our spa business is negatively impacted, it would totally annihilate our business. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kenny Tatro, Lynn's husband, the other owner. And again, thanks to the Chamber for what they did. The noise thing,
Kenny, before you get started, I mean, I'll just ask, I understand, we want to hear what you have to say. Okay. You can maybe make us
say anything she said.
Well, I heard noise, and that's fine. You can say it again, just we don't need to hear it several times. We understand that noise is a concern. So, but you're welcome to state it again, just try to keep it.
Won't be anything like hers.
Okay, thank you.
The letters that went out talking about the public notice for everybody that got those notices. After your last meeting on Valentine's Day, the article that was in the Courier the following week stated that there was only one business involved with this that was unhappy about the whole situation. Last week, I went around and talked to all the other businesses in our area. Help the Needy, which I have a letter from Vince, which I'd like to read into the record if that's possible. It'll only take a second.
That's fine.
Vince Scarlata, if I would say his name right. Help the Needy at 117 North Center Streets has concerns about making an existing commercial structure at 116 North Center Street a residential dwelling. The area here is made up of locally owned businesses which rely on a quiet street with parking available for our clients. The concern is that if residents are living at 116, they may have several vehicles taking up spaces needed for business. They may also have large groups visiting, taking up even more spaces. Another concern is if they have young children playing in or near the street, making it a hazard for them. This is not an area for children to play. Please consider all concerns voiced, and do not think that those who have not responded do not care. Voices count more than those not voiced. Obviously, there was a couple other businesses there that were also concerned about this, and some of them are sitting over here too. One of the buildings is a leased building. The owner did not pass the message down to the other people, the leaseor or leasees, whoever is in there. So they didn't know anything about it until I went over and told them about it. So now we have a couple other businesses on that same street. Regards to 114 North Center Street, the building that guy wrote the letter and said that he's for this. As far as I know, in the year and a half that we've been there, there's never been anybody in that building. The last person I remember that was in there was the engineering firm, the guys that drove the yellow truck. I don't remember who they were called. They since have moved, but as far as I remember, that's the last business or person that's even been in that building. So that person's concerns, as far as I'm concerned, really don't resonate real well with this. Just my opinion. Also, well, she mentioned the other thing with the other business owner. Did you pull permits to fix your building after the fire?
Yeah, Kenny,
Is that relevant?
I think you need to address us if that's
Well, I was
something.
just
We're going to
curious.
ask the applicant to come back up after
Okay.
this, and if he
Walking
wants to
the
address
building,
that.
I just
that's-
never noticed a permit, the yellow permit sign out in front when repairs were going on inside there. So as far as reputation goes, and not being a resident of Teller County, I have concerns being in the building industry myself. I would like, well, you have this letter here, and there's other people that want to come up and talk. I really hope this doesn't happen.
Okay.
We can't afford to lose everything we got on this. Thank you.
I do have one question for
Okay.
you, if I might. You guys own the building?
Yes, outright,
Okay.
it's ours.
Okay.
And the parking lot that we own in the building, the parking lot that everybody parks in is a separate lot, so we actually own two lots.
Okay.
We have the building itself and the parking lot, which is where all of our clients and everybody park. That's also part of the, we own two city lots right there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And thank you for keeping your comments. We understand, thank you. Okay, the next on the list is, sir, no, we're going to go through the public comment process, and then when we're done hearing all the comments, as the applicant, you'll get the opportunity to come up and you can address any and all of the comments that you wish, and then we'll move on from there. The next person on the list is Dan Carlibre, or Carla. I don't get that, but that's okay. Like I said.
Hi, I'm Crystal Ide. I own Bliss Hair and Nail Studio across the street from the property, said property.
Okay. And can you state the address for the record?
111 North Center Street.
Great, thank
Unit
you.
A and B, and then did Janice come up? She's Unit C. There is a problem with parking already. If you look at the property that is directly across the front of this, you know, half of our building is like a curve and there's nowhere to park. We have maybe 3 parking spaces right here. There's a public parking back there, but there's also now a new Prayer Mountain, and they're quite active. The parking is all taken in the back. The school, the beauty school behind us, is filled, all the parking, which is part of her parking. And I've been in business there for 5 years, and you know, it is a quiet neighborhood. Where Ken and Lynn are, they're not facing this property directly. So, I mean, what they're saying as far as a noise issue, I try to run a professional salon. I have 3 other hairdressers in there. You know, we've just expanded. It's great. Things are good. And to think that we're going to possibly have, you know, a swing set, toys and everything across. It's known as Beauty Row. It's kind of a joke in town. Like, we need one more bank, one more Chinese shop, one more, you know, hair salon. But, I mean, you know, all joking aside, we have a business and we've been paying our taxes. We've been doing our thing. So I'm not going to address him, but why is there a problem with getting another business in there? Is it just because, a rental for, you know, to get a rental because everybody's getting kicked out of their houses and needs a cheap rental? Well, personally, I don't want to sit across and look at that all day. That's not what I signed up for 5 years ago. This is what it was. And I do realize things change, but have there been any other actions to try to see what other businesses we could get? I mean, apparently not. From what Lynn has said, then it sounds like the decision's been made, which is not fair. And Gene Sperry owns my building, and he's in Hawaii, I think, right now. So he didn't, inform us of all this. He just owns the building. But I've been working there for 5 years and running a business and being successful and doing a good job with lack of parking. She's moved into the back. Now, who's going to be the patrol to come and watch all these people and say, did you guys get your parking space in the back? No, nobody does that. So, there are going to be complaints. There will be problems. And, why not try to make peace and leave it as it is? I mean, I know that the waste management business was there when I moved in 5 years ago, so it worked. I mean, can we not try to find something else like that and get that in there and then it was a low minimal, people pulled up, paid their bills. Sometimes people would pull up and bring their whole trash can because they were pissed, but that's what it was. And, take us into consideration. I was not asked or told about anything, but I'm the one that looks directly across the street from that. And it should be heard. And nobody's going to, we have kids that skateboard on my sidewalk because it's a great step. Well, you know what? I have, clients in here, and basically they skateboard, the alley's right here, boom, like a car. The cars go through very quickly there. What, are they going to have children? Is anybody, who's really going to watch and say all this? He doesn't even live here. He lives on Tejon. So, I've been doing business here for 5 years. I pay my taxes, I do my thing, and I'd like to be heard, and I wouldn't want it to be, same with her. When they can't park in the front, they're going to park in the back. So those are valid issues. And
Okay.
I hope everybody's heard them. I didn't mean to, but they all need to be heard. And this is my husband, Dan, and he was just here to show some more face because really it should be looked at a little bit closer and not be a done deal.
Great.
Because that doesn't seem too fair. Just because I'm an occupant and not an owner, you have an absentee owner that didn't obviously tell the occupant.
Well, we're here tonight to discuss the issue and make a decision, and
okay, I appreciate it.
Appreciate your testimony, and this is the opportunity for you to be heard. So,
okay, thank
you very much for coming up.
Actually, I'd like to say something. I'm
Yeah,
Dan
please.
Carl. I'm Crystal's husband there.
And state your address one more time.
111 Center Street.
Okay, thank you.
Bliss there. And what I'd like to say is that, first of all, that is how we found out today. I came around. I was doing work for the assessor's office the day it happened to be, and we're a pretty tight-knit community here of people. In fact, we know Ken and Lenny. We know Janice. They've all worked in our shop at one time or another, and so we all know each other very well. And it took me all of 10 minutes or so to find out about this issue today because Gene Sperry didn't pass this down to us. I understand you went through the process of sending out a notice to, notify everybody about this and stuff, and you only had to go, 150 feet around, and let people know about this and stuff. And again, it took me 5 or 10 minutes to find out about this through these people and stuff. And I guess one of my concerns right there is even though you went through that process, and we didn't find out through Gene Sperry, you maybe could have taken a little extra time to walk around and talk to some of the tenants that were in this area right here yourself about the whole issue. It didn't take long for me to find out, and maybe it wouldn't have taken long for them to find out if you would have taken the time just to come and talk to us. We're a tight-knit community like that.
Hey, Dan.
You don't know that because of the fact you don't live up here.
If you don't mind, could you address us?
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to take part.
Right.
Again, you went through the process, and I appreciate that and stuff. But again, you see, there's slippage in that situation. This is how we found out today. It also happened to be when I was doing assessor's work today that I was addressed by one of the another business owner, right there within the vicinity and stuff about issues about the shared wastewater issue of some of the businesses in the area there, and also about the public parking and stuff. This is before I even knew this issue was coming about and stuff. So again, there's more concerns with other businesses that were 300 feet away from his vicinity there. So that was brought about. The other thing, and that's one of my concerns right there, is just, and the public parking. I agree with what they're saying here. And so if it's a tight-knit place, we need all the parking we can get. So that would be one of my concerns right there. The other thing was, and probably my primary concern over this, is safety. And that is the fact that there could be a family in there with kids running around this front yard area, in which you've seen the front yard area of this place. It's a long, the building sits way back in there. you get kids running back in there and stuff. What's to prevent one of those kids from running out into the street? And if you've ever been up and down Center Street there when there is parking and stuff, it's a very dangerous situation and stuff as far as, you know, you got to open your door and you got to slam it shut real quick because somebody is coming maybe 10 miles an hour, but it's that quick. There's not very much room up and down that street, you know. So that's a big concern right there. And plus the fact that the bar, and some of these bars are so close. I know Bucks is just now closing down, but before maybe all this was taking place, there was 2 bars at that time. And the person that broke into your business there and started the fire, I just happen to be, I'm a local musician here who plays at the Ute quite a bit. And I get to see, from my standpoint up there being a local musician, you know, what level these people get at and stuff with their drinking and everything, you know. I have to kind of keep sober myself there because I've got a lot of songs to remember and things like that, you know. But I was there that night when all that happened and stuff, so I get to see the kind of people that leave there and stuff. And so you had an incident there with somebody leaving and starting a fire in your place. I mean, what's going to prevent somebody from coming around one of those streets and being drunk one night and hitting one of these kids, or maybe not that late at night or something, maybe just earlier in the day, maybe on a Saturday or something like that, you know? That's one of my big concerns right there, is the fact that we have no guarantee of what kind of family or what family is going to move in there, how many kids, if any kids, are going to be there and stuff. But if there are, you know, that situation right there, that somebody could get killed over this, you know?
Right. And
for the fact that you want to turn it into a residential situation, and you've been offered already by somebody unnamed that there could be somebody's interested in your building for commercial purposes.
And we understand that. We're here tonight because the applicants come forward and asked us to consider it a conditional use permit. It's not for us to determine whether, I mean, we're going to discuss it tonight as it relates to this application, not whether he can fill it up with a commercial user or not. So
right, I understand that.
We understand that testimony.
The alternative is there for him and stuff, and you know, and I wish him success in being able to fill that building with that, but hopefully on the commercial side and not the residential side. But that's probably my primary concern, is the safety issue over anything, you know, because I have seen people at that level leaving these bars and stuff, and it's not a good thing. So. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Appreciate your testimony. Thank you very much.
Question.
We have a question.
Do we get to ask any questions, or?
If you like.
I just have, I'm getting confused here a little bit. It seems a commercial versus residential use of that particular piece of property. And you mentioned things about noise factor as well as parking. Now you mentioned the safety thing. Mm-hmm. What assurances do you have that a commercial business there won't create the same, if not more, problems for parking, noise, or, for instance, they put a daycare center, you can have kids in there. So I'm having a hard time.
I mean, until anybody's there, I mean, I work too much. I'm there 10 hours a day, so I can tell you what the traffic is. And people don't slow down. It's a one-way street.
No, I understand
people
that.
turn
My
around and go
question
the wrong way on the other way. But what I'm saying is, your question is, the safety part is basically the tightness of where the cars are parking. Who knows whoever's parking there? I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You're going to have the same
Whoever
problem
parks
with
there,
commercial
we're always going to have
establishment there as well.
right. But I mean, who's really going to patrol the fact that the people that are residents say, you know, basically are they? It's much easier to pull in on this one-way street and pull right in front of their house and walk in. When you have to go back through the alley and go back and then go back and then, oh, there's those 2 little parking spaces. That's a little more difficult than turning on a one-way street off of 24 and just pulling right in. So I'm just going by, well, what do you think will happen?
Well, you'll never have the same, you won't have the same problem with the commercial establishment there? Same thing applies.
You possibly might, but with a commercial and stuff, you know, commercial doesn't have a family. A family is always going to exist in a residential situation, in a daycare situation, but that's one commercial.
We're building hypotheticals here.
That's one commercial use out of many commercial uses and stuff. And what other commercial uses can you give me an example of that are going to have kids running around and stuff? Daycare, you've given me that. I understand that. But what others do you have?
But how many people are going to want to? I mean, you know, yeah, we're doing hypotheticals. I just basically made my point. I don't want to take it away from what I've made as far as my point.
Excuse me.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. I don't think we need to get into a debate here.
Yeah, I don't.
I think you asked your question. We've had a response. I don't.
Yeah.
I think we can get into hypotheticals all day long.
I'm just saying, I've had the business for 5 years, and it's been a nice, quiet neighborhood. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that the residents will be loud or noisy, but we can't guarantee they're not going to have a swing set or a sandbox out front. It's right in the middle of Beauty Row. We've liked it. We've been happy with it, and we're just asking you to see our side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just think there's a higher percentage rate of the fact that a residential is going to have a situation of a kid being there versus commercial. You're giving me a 10% average there of what commercial might exist with that. I understand that, but there's going to be a kid possibility all the time with residential.
And we appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. All right, moving on, Randy Coburn. And I guess I would ask, just in the interest of time, and I don't want to cut anybody short because we've allowed folks to be able to provide the testimony they want to provide, but I would just ask that we try to be succinct. You know, say what your concerns are. We don't need to go over them, you know, multiple times. And so if you'll try to do that, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to make this very succinct. My name is Randy Coburn. I'm the owner of 221 West Henrietta Avenue, and it's on the same block. And I fully support the Amir Safyan's desire to change it from a commercial property to a residential property. I don't have a problem. I don't foresee a problem. I certainly don't wish any ill on any of the businesses there. Absolutely not. And I know Amir does not either. I'm actually a tenant of one of the buildings that Amir owns here in Woodland Park, and and speaking of, to paint Amir as some outsider is just a farce. I mean, this guy's got in many respects more invested in this city than many people, and he cares deeply about this city, and he demonstrates that on a daily basis, and he's up here, continuously. He's a very professional, businessman. I've seen him operate, the Woodland Park Business Center for numerous years. I've been over there for 10 or 12 years myself, and I think Amir's owned it for roughly 10 years. Don't quote me on that, but for quite some time, and I've seen how he operates. He definitely runs a tight ship. He takes care of business. He'll make sure whatever's within his control that he keeps the noise down. He'll make sure that it's not overflowing with 15 people living there, or any scenario that you could drum up like that. But bottom line is everything that I'm hearing has to do with parking and noise. Obviously the safety issues have been brought up as well, and addressing parking. Just make it very succinct. There's 2 parking spots that go to this house, and the people that lease there need to park there, and if they park somewhere illegally, then there's obviously ordinances to take care of that. As far as noise, we've heard about the farmers market being there. I mean, come on. I mean, when you got hundreds and hundreds of people going around on a Saturday, and parked, up and down, Center Street, and you got every, business that's around there that, we talk about when, property is, transferred to another owner. Who knows what businesses are going to, move in and out of there, and what noise may be generated, whether it's, child care, or who knows what all could move in and out of there. There's no guarantee that that's going to be the silent street in Woodland Park as far as a commercial street is concerned. But I just think that the scenario of somebody having a barbecue, if that's going to put somebody out of business on a Saturday, that's a vulnerable business, and it doesn't sound like they have a vulnerable business. And I just don't see that as being a big noise generator, and laying this all at Amir's feet, like it's his gigantic burden to bear is just completely unfair. So anyway, I support it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming this evening. Sandra Severin. I know that feeling. Would you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Okay. My name is Sandra Saborin, and I work at 321 West Henrietta, which is the Pikes Peak Office Center behind Starbucks. Let's see. I have been a tenant of Amir's and Laura's for about 6 years. And as far as my experience go, I have the same as this guy's. They are completely invested in Woodland Park. So to hear that they even live down there, I send my rent check down there to the Springs, that's not where their hearts are. I thought that they were just part of our community because that's how they act all the time. So anything I've ever needed, like he said, there was an issue with a neighboring tenant. She was selling kids' clothing. I'm a mental health therapist, and so my office is right there, and I could hear the noise, and my clients are very adaptable. But, so I was just going to go with it, and Amir ended up calling me within days to say, are you having a noise problem? Is this a problem? And I said, yes, we are hearing some breakthrough noise, but, I can work with it. And he was just on it. I mean, like literally the next day, whatever, they had people working to get doors sealed and things taken care of. I mean, it was amazing. So I think that's really all I have to say is they're amazing people, and they will do what is right. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the list is Crystal. I'm sorry. Okay, no problem. Derek Reed. And once again, name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Council. My name is Derek Reed. I'm the owner of 114 Center Street. Apparently the absentee owner that doesn't use the building. We've owned it for 3 years. I honestly want to say we have no ill respects. We know Dan and his wife quite well. They're friends. I've had a chance to meet the owners, I think, once or twice of Hot Heads. My wife and I bought the building about 3 years ago as an investment. It was a bank-owned. The company that was at the time the owner was using it as an office space. I believe it was a AEG contracting or AEG consulting. Thank you, and engineering that did an engineering and CAD design and documents to that respect. I've talked to Amir, and I would support his bid for converting things to residential. Quite honestly, I think there is a little bit of a misperception. I'm a real estate agent, and my building, 114 Center Street, was zoned residential. It is residential. When you look at the internals of the building, it is a living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a bedroom. That's it. It is more conducive to living as a residential than any business could possibly be. There would have to be extensive renovation to make it into a office. Currently, my wife uses it as her home away from home. Rather than have an office in our house, she wanted something away from our house, so she uses that as her office. She's a consultant that works out of Denver and travels and then has people come there rather than come to our house. We have tried wholeheartedly, apparently successfully, to not impact the businesses around us. We park in the rear behind our garage, which is right next to Amir's building, and always park back there to make sure that there is as much parking on Center Street for the businesses as possible. And going forward, it's one of those things where what I'm throwing out to the council is, Center Street was one of the original residential streets of this entire town. My building was one of the original residents of the city, built in 1909. So when I look at from a use standpoint, and we're in a mixed use zone there, what I am trying to find is why we wouldn't allow an owner, if they wanted to, and following all the protocol set forth by city and the council, if they meet all those qualifications, I would ask the council to consider that above anything else. That if they meet the qualifications and they wish to make this change, then working within those guidelines, that's what I'm asking you folks to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else out in the audience that would like to come speak on this issue? I don't have anyone else signed up. Okay, with that, we'll ask the applicant to come back up, and Amir, you're welcome to...
Just real quickly, I appreciate the referral. We'll take referrals all day long. This particular person inquired about our main office building 2 years ago. We met with her multiple times, showed her a space, tried to give her some build-out money. It went nowhere. So when she called this past Saturday, I literally heard my wife take the phone call, and I said, "Look, let her know that we'll have a vote here in a few days." Forgive me, it was her assistant that called on Saturday and said, my supervisor would like to talk to you about this space. And I said, okay, this is Saturday, we've got the vote Thursday. I told my wife, let her know that there's going to be a vote. I never said, why would I tell her? I've not assumed that you guys will vote in our favor. I didn't tell her that. I told her specifically, we have a vote Thursday. If it doesn't go in our favorable direction, certainly we would engage her, just like we did a couple years ago in our main office building. Happy to engage her. So that was, and by the way, Randy's building is a residential building just within the zone, within the same zone. So earlier when there was a comment that there's no single-family homes, that's not true. Randy's is a single-family home, just behind the Quest Central Office building, single-family home on the same block. So, thank you.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we'll close the public comment period as it relates to item 9A, ordinance 1184, and we'll bring it up to the dais for comments or any other questions that we might have of staff or any clarifications we might need.
Why was it changed to commercial in the first place? Was it in the city's interest?
I think it just got zoned in as the group, as they zoned it, wouldn't it, David?
I'm going to defer to Sally. I don't have that history.
So I guess the question is, why was this
Property
zoned?
zoned.
From residential to commercial in the first place? Must have been some sort of vested interest on the city's part, or something to do that.
I think we'll let Sally address that.
First of all, I doubt it was ever zoned residential. This has always been a commercial area, and it was just that it was historic use was residential. It was built as a residence, like Derek's home from the early 1900s. So it's a pre-existing use as residential, but this area of town has always been a commercial since we've had zoning in 1969.
My question is, why would we want to change it back to residential? What's the vested interest on our part that we'd want to change it to residential? You know, we would lose revenue by doing that, obviously.
Well, that's what we're here tonight to discuss.
It's important to acknowledge you're not changing the zoning. So it still has an underlying zone for central business
Well,
district.
I'm saying we'd be changing from
You're-
commercial to residential.
Changing the
use.
What's the vested interest
allowance,
in the city's part to do that?
the allowance for the use, yes.
And that's what we get to decide this evening. Terry?
I don't know, Sally might be able to answer this, if not, Brian can. That property sits right smack, just about dead center in the middle of the DDA. Is that gonna have any effect on the overall plan of the plan of the DDA at all?
I can't say.
You know, 'cause it's actually bringing the mixed use into that area by having a residence in there. You know, I'm mainly concerned with the traffic of getting to those two lots. It's a tough little turn into the alley off of Henrietta, and it's a tougher turn from the alley back in behind it.
Okay, Carol?
Sally, what was the, we had another conditional use request for the State Farm building. Could you remind us how that one worked and how well it's working now?
State Farm.
Java the Hutt.
Yeah, Java the Hutt.
Oh, Erica Stevens. She's on Midland Avenue, also in the Central Business District. They decided not to move forward or move into that facility primarily because of the extensive remodeling that they were needing to do to meet the building codes in order to make a separation. That's truly a mixed-use building with an office portion and a residential portion.
But we did approve that.
We did, yes, or you did.
Bob?
I think the main point at the beginning was that in our comprehensive plan, though, we were, like a lot of cities in the downtown area, they're trying to revitalize them and have people live in them. Of course,
yes.
Here we got a really small city, so it only takes about 2 minutes to walk from where all the residential areas are to the business areas. But when we were doing the DDA property, at least some of the original plans, is you would have the commercial at the first level, and then you would have apartments or condos on the upper level. And so that's generally the concept cities are going with, is to have that kind of mixed use. And the question is, do we want this to be part of the mixed use solution? I mean, considering the other factors that were brought up by the other witnesses, so to speak.
And not necessarily to answer for Sally, I think staff has recommended approval, and that's where the staff sits, and so, but it's up to us to discuss it. Are there any more questions of staff? Otherwise, I'd like to just open it up and we can have our discussion and move on here. John?
I have one question about parking, and I hate to bring it up, but I understand there's a concrete pad for 2 vehicles that goes with this property. The surrounding businesses, are there any parking codes or requirements that are being violated with the current arrangement for any of those businesses, and including this as a residence?
No, in the Central Business District area, we have a lot of public parking that becomes the shared parking for the overall business mix. So no one's in violation.
And 2 parking spots are what are required for a single-family residential unit, so it would technically meet the parking requirements as it relates to the pad that's there today.
Yep.
So are there more questions of staff, or you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that the first the owner of the hot spa, whatever it was, they whatever, hotheads. That's even worse. But whatever. They own the lot next to their building, so that they would have property they own for their business. Their business. Is that similar with all the other businesses in the area, or are they all taking advantage of public spaces?
It's a real mix. So it's hard to tell whether they have multiple lots. In the old part of town, there are many single owners of multiple lots, so it's
mixed.
It's mixed. Yeah.
Other questions of staff? Aaron?
I think it's important now, as you move to your deliberations, for the council to turn to pages 2, 3, 4 of the staff report and look at what the code criteria are, and then review the testimony with your colleagues on council in light of where they fit within those criteria. Staff has made findings that those criteria were met and offered evidence to that effect. And so testimony you heard needs to be weighed by the council and determine whether the testimony is evidence in support of these criteria or evidence showing that these criteria haven't met. And that would be the way you should frame your discussion.
So we should only consider the criteria.
We have 11.
Period.
We have 11.
And if they meet all of those criteria, it doesn't matter what anybody else says about
In your view as a
use
count,
of the land.
correct. Those are the criteria that you must judge the application by. So you're right, you're confined to those. And then you get to listen to the evidence that you heard and determine whether or not there was evidence that fit within one of these criteria, and did it help to show that that criteria was met, or did it help to show that that criteria had not been met? So yes, thank you for that clarification.
And what we've done in the past, and I don't know if we necessarily need to do that, but we've gone through the criteria and kind of talked about it. But as far as the motion maker goes, when the time comes, whether it's a motion to approve or motion to deny, it's important to try to outline the reasons for support as it relates to the 11 criteria, or the reasons not to support as it relates to, I don't think you have to outline the 5 that comply and the 2 that don't, but in your mind, you could just outline the 2 that don't, I believe, in that case. Yeah. So now's the time for deliberation. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to kick this off, or we can always just move forward with a motion as well.
I'd like to move forward with the motion to approve ordinance 1184 as recommended by staff. And I found no compelling testimony to make me believe that any of the criteria were not met. Therefore, I support it.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Okay, Suzanne?
Carlson,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Smith,
No.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Motion passes. Sorry.
Do I get a vote?
Veto.
Oh,
No.
I'm sorry. Ah. My bad.
Okay.
That's when the mayor, or you gotta hit me when that happens. All right, so go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, so Bravetta, let's get that back on. No? Okay. So motion passes 4-2.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for everyone coming out this evening, and I'll just like to state for the record going forward that this was not, I would like to state, I'd like to state that this was not an easy topic in my mind, and but anyway, we'll move on, and appreciate everyone's comments, and we'll move on to item 9B. 9B is to approve ordinance or consider ordinance 1183 of the City of Woodland Park, County of Teller, State of Colorado, and supplement to the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 5.09, regulating pawnbrokers, provides special provisions for internet pawnbrokers. And with that, we'll turn to our city attorney, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. What I have for council tonight is a short presentation to be read into the legislative record for this matter. Then I will orient or walk council through the proposed ordinance. And then I intend to introduce Mr. Michael Slivka, who is really the proponent of this ordinance, or I should say represents a client who is the proponent of this ordinance. So to start with then, I do have to read into the legislative record that Ordinance 1183 is before council on second reading. Ordinance 1183, if adopted, amends the city's regulations governing pawnbrokers. The impetus for the ordinance is twofold. The first reason for the ordinance is to amend the pawnbroker regulations to facilitate the licensing of internet pawnbrokers. These changes are contained in Section 1 of the ordinance, These changes are proposed by a business that would like to set up an internet pawnbroker business and license it in Woodland Park. The ordinance proponent's representative, Michael Slivka, as I mentioned, is prepared to address council's questions, if any, during the public hearing, and I will be introducing Mr. Slivka at the close of my presentation. Also, Mr. Slivka's letter was in the packet for the first reading ordinance, and it has been supplied to council again on the dais. So you have a copy of that letter. The second reason for the ordinance is in keeping with the goal of updating the municipal code and conforming it as needed to state law. To this end, the ordinance picks up changes made in 2004 to state laws governing how municipalities can regulate pawnbrokers. The state legislature intended these changes to apply to Woodland Park, even though Woodland Park is a home rule city. And so we have prepared for you in the ordinance picking up those changes. Those are contained in section 2 of the ordinance. I would now like to have council turn to the ordinance itself, and I will walk council through that ordinance. Page 1 of the ordinance contains a number of recitals, and those really are just capturing the intent. Again, the intent of this ordinance is to update it and conform it to state law, and to also make a few minor changes so that internet brokering can be licensed in Woodland Park. It's interesting to note, I haven't done a survey across the state, but I do know that both the City of Centennial and the County of Teller have added provisions to allow internet pawnbrokering to their pawnbroker regulations. And in a large part, Section 1 parrots what both Centennial and Teller County have done by making minor changes to the laws governing pawnbrokers so that they aren't inconsistent with allowing internet pawnbroker to license in the city. And so the first thing that we had to do is we had to define what an internet pawnbroker is. We've defined it as a subset of pawnbrokers, and that way all of our pawnbroker regulations will apply to internet pawnbrokers because they're a subset by definition. And I'm happy to go through those, although I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Again, that definition is one that is borrowed heavily from Centennial and Teller County. Part B on page 2, section B on page 2, the new section 509111, which would be added to the code, imposes some into the code and puts in some provisions that are specific to internet pawnbrokers. And one of those is to require that internet pawnbrokers would be that they keep their electronic records the way that a regular pawnbroker would. So if you look at the city's code on what a pawnbroker has to do, this would be, letter A would be in addition to that. So would letter B. Letter B just recognizes that for internet pawnbrokers, obtaining an actual signature in all cases is inconsistent with how they would do business, so this allows for electronic signatures. C makes it clear that even though this internet pawnbroker might be somewhere outside the city, that by having licensed itself in the city of Woodland Park, it is making itself open to the local law enforcement authority of that area to come in and to make sure that they are in compliance with their license requirements, and to make sure that they are in compliance with how they are storing the merchandise, and that's necessary because, again, they will be in a different jurisdiction. Section D is to make it clear that the hours of business provision is not applicable. In this case, the internet pawnbroker is exempt from that. And then finally, again, borrowing heavily from what Teller County and Centennial has done, E is just a provision that requires that the pawnbroker does have an obligation to make reasonable inquiries into the person he's doing business with to make sure that that person is not violating laws and trying to work with stolen property. So that is those provisions in section B, A through E. Section 2 of the ordinance is the section that's been added so that our city code now is conforming to state laws. Again, state law changes were made in 2004. The city's regulations were crafted prior to that, and so we are just now catching up with some of those changes and conforming these. For the most part, when these changes were brought through the legislature, local jurisdictions felt that what had happened is there were all sorts of across-the-board regulations governing the contract for sales and how the pawnbroker was compensated or made money when those contracts for sales were canceled. And so many of those changes, as you can see, had to do with conforming and standardizing across the state how the pawnbroker would be compensated when a pawn transaction was canceled and the person came back to claim their property. Finally, there is a provision here that updates the city code such that certain violations of the regulations by a pawnbroker go from what had been a Class 5 felony under state law to a Class 6 felony. And it is the recommendation of, a joint recommendation of the police chief and the city attorney that we conform the city code to reflect that change as well. Technically, the state legislature did allow for cities to vary their codes with respect to the penalties, but in this case, the recommendation is that we conform and make our violations in certain areas of the ordinance a Class 5, a Class 6 felony as opposed to a Class 5 felony. With that, what I would like to do is take any questions, and then we could, then I'd be happy to introduce Mr. Slivka.
Eric? How is our ordinance different than the state statute, or is it?
It is different as outlined on page 3.
So there are differences?
There are differences. The new suggested changes, which are the state legislative conforming changes, are underlined on page 3.
My question is, if there's an existing state statute, okay, why are we writing an ordinance that's duplicating the state statute? What are we doing that's different than the state statute?
Well, we are the licensing authority, so in order to do that, we have to have an ordinance in place. Yeah, we don't get that.
But we can't follow just the state statute. We have to have our separate ordinance.
Yeah, because we are the licensing authority. And what the state statute does is it does not govern pawnbrokers. What it says is all of you jurisdictions who plan to govern pawnbrokers are enabled to do that by writing your own laws. So it's been contemplated from the beginning that local jurisdictions would write their own licensing and regulation provisions. They just have to be patterned based on the state law.
What's the difference between felony 5 and 6?
It's minor differences with respect to, and Chief can probably answer this better, but a Class 6 felony has a minimum sentence of 1 year imprisonment. A Class 5 felony also happens to have a minimum sentence of 1 year imprisonment. The maximum sentence varies and differs. So a Class 5 felony has a maximum sentence of 3 years imprisonment, and a Class 6 felony has a maximum sentence of 18 months imprisonment. And then there is they differ on the mandatory period of parole. A Class 5 felony has a mandatory period of parole of 2 years, and a Class 6 felony has a mandatory period of parole of 1 year.
Hopefully something that we never have to ask again. Any other questions of Aaron before we ask Mr. Slivka to come up? Do you want to introduce him?
And then I'd be happy to introduce Mr. Slivka. I've actually not met him in person. I understand that he is an attorney, and he does represent a client, as outlined in his letter, who is the proponent for this ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Slivka, welcome.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Michael Slivka, and I'm an attorney. My office and my home is at 105 Piney Point, so I'm not technically in the city. But my client has been a pawnbroker and retailer of high-end watches and jewelry for some 27 years. I actually bought my Rolex from him 25 years ago, and it works great. But the pawn business is something that's quite necessary in these tough economic times. Our potential customers would be the small to medium business owner who, for whatever reason, doesn't want to get a traditional loan from a bank or run up a credit card or have something showing up on his credit report. He might have trouble meeting payroll this month. He has a $50,000 Cartier watch. He needs cash to keep his business running. He can walk into a traditional pawn shop. He might not want to be seen walking into a traditional pawn shop. So the internet pawn business is something that my client came across with the business known as PawnGo that has been established for several years now in Centennial. And I presented the Centennial ordinance to the city and the city attorney. And it's quite long and comprehensive, and it's not something that we really need here. I think the city attorney agrees with me. We just needed to tweak the existing ordinance to define what an internet pawnbroker is. My client intends to rent office space within the city so that we would be subject to city jurisdiction. So there will be a positive economic benefit to the city from having more office space taken. We're prepared to pay a reasonable application fee and yearly renewal fees. I have no idea what it is. Centennial actually charges $2,500 a year, but I doubt if that would be the fees for Woodland Park. But the business PawnGo has become one of the fastest growing businesses in the country. Just, there's so much interest in it because people, have assets, and it's a quick way to get money. It sounds like it might be a bad deal to pay 4% interest a month, but if you need 50 grand for 30 days, that's really not that much money, and you've taken care of the problem, you've kept your business open. And so I feel there wouldn't be any negative impacts on the city. We would have an office, we'd have our license there, I'd have a computer there so that law enforcement could come in during business hours, review whatever records we have. If there's a problem, we'd also be willing to work with, and the ordinance provides that we'd also be subject to law enforcement in the location of the storage facility, wherever that might be. That's contemplated right now to be in Miami. My client has expressed interest in leaving Miami, possibly relocating here. And, it's hard to live in South Florida. I lived there 22 years myself and just love being in Woodland Park in Teller County. I think my presentation letter pretty much outlines where we're coming from, what we want to do. I have the websites for my clients, two businesses, Gables Watch, which does retail sales of such watches as Rolex, Cartier, Baume & Mercier, Patek Philippe, you know, he may very well take in high-end jewelry as part of this operation. He's not going to be pawning tools and merchandise. People aren't going to be walking into the office to pawn something. It's going to be solely on the internet. So there's no negative effect to the community. There may be a positive effect if the business grows and he decides to relocate the operation here. We may be able to rent or buy bigger space and hire employees. So I think it would be overall a net benefit, and you know, it's also good that the city attorney found that there was a need to amend the ordinance anyway to comply with current state statutes. So you'd be killing two birds with one stone. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
The most obvious one to me is this occurring because you live here and you are an associate of the individual who wants to set up a licensing here in town?
Well, Howard is one of my oldest and dearest friends, first of all. But he thinks that Colorado may be the only state that would be workable to do internet pawn because of our statutory scheme. Most states have regulation of brokering at the state level. So to do internet pawns in most states, you'd have to actually amend the state statutes and lobby and go all through that. Whereas Colorado has a pawnbroking statute which basically gives general guidelines but turns the actual regulation over to the local communities where it belongs so that the local communities can address their particular issues. And so following on the lead of Pongo in the city of Centennial, he said, well, this is where I'd like to have my business. And so, and I've been telling him about Colorado, and I think he'd like to live here.
Thanks.
Other questions, Mr. Silva? Or Slivka? Slivka? Mr.
No.
Slivka?
No.
No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for coming this evening. Any more questions or comments, Carol? I just have one question. How does the sales tax work? Since Kelly stepped up.
The sales tax really applies where the sale culminates, and therefore, unless the sale was made into our jurisdiction, there would not be a sales tax due the city of Woodland Park.
Okay.
It's really as simple as that.
Okay. Any other questions? Terry?
Well, with that, Kelly, though, I mean, if the operation was moved here and the warehouse was here or wherever we stock this, then that would be considered the sale being made here. If the sale was made and transferred out, then?
No, sir, it's where that culminates. It's where the sale actually terminates, the end sale. An example would be when Home Depot delivers their wares into the city of Woodland Park to a customer here. That determines that the sale took place here, the end sale and delivery of the product. Therefore, we collect the taxes due to the city of Woodland Park. However, if you go to Colorado Springs, purchase the item, and bring it up here to install it, that would be a use tax consequence, not a sales tax, because the sale took place at their store in Colorado Springs.
But so the transaction would actually have to take place within inside the city limits?
That's correct.
The entire transaction?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And could I address one thing on that issue too? A pawn is really not a sale of an article. It's a contract for purchase, where basically it's a loan where the item is pledged as security for the loan. So you have a Cartier watch, I'll give you $20,000 for it, you pay me back in a month, you get the watch back.
I got a Breitling and you got a deal.
There you go.
You know, and since you're back up there, could you briefly tell us, this is just baffling me, how does all this work? Because It's done on the internet. There's a product. There's cash being loaned for that product, and I mean,
here physically, this is how I understand it would work and how Pongo does it. You type in pawnbroker, internet pawn, and Pongo would come up on the Google search. They have a website, and it explains in detail. And my client would prepare such a website that's quite user friendly, and it would say what we do, where we are, our credentials, what we pawn, and let's say you have your Breitling, and you email to my client and say, well, I have this watch, here's a picture of it that I'm scanning in, what could I get for it? And he'll say, well, it looks like I might be able to give you $5,000 for that watch for the loan period. And then, your repayment would be the $5,000 plus 4% per month. And so at that point, but it's conditional on inspection and delivery. So you would then FedEx it down to the facility. They would inspect it, determine whether it was actually real, and say, okay, we've got it. It's insured along the way. It's insured while it's there. So they would email you back, or you might be able to call, and they'd say, okay, it's real. We'll wire the $5,000 to you. And, you have to fill in these forms and fax them or scan them back to us. So physically, that's how it would work. My client informs me that 75% of the pawns get paid and the items are returned. There might be 25% that actually go into default, and the pawnbroker keeps the item among his customers and the types of articles he deals in.
So this is a public hearing, and as such, there's no other questions of Mr. Slivka. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing and for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Is there any more discussion, questions, or is there a motion?
Make motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. Kelly?
Thank you. Harrison?
yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Brevetta?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Moving on to our last public hearing item tonight. It's item 9C, consideration of approval of ordinance 1182, authorizing the City of Woodland Park to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Teller County and to accept a quitclaim deed from Teller County for a portion of Rosemont Road, Laura Lane, and sand wash of Fountain Creek. And for that, Sally is going to provide us some information.
Thank you, Council. In your packet is a brief staff report that overviews the work that is being done to prepare for the drainage improvements to Fountain Creek to the main stem. This portion of Rosemont and Laura Lane is currently adjacent to the city limits, but owned by Teller County. So they are agreeing to transfer the property into the city's control, and then we will follow up with a ordinance to annex this property so that it will become part of the city as well. I would be happy to answer any questions regarding the intergovernmental agreement or the quitclaim deed, but would recommend after you hold public comment and deliberations to approve ordinance 1182.
Questions of staff? Okay. Thank you, Sally. With that, we'll open the public comment period regarding ordinance 1182. Is Is there anyone that would like to come forward? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period for ordinance number 1182. Any comments, or is there a motion?
Motion to approve 1182.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kelly?
Thank you. Harvey?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Bravetto?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
And Harrison?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have nothing new under new business. And item number 11 is public comment on items not on the agenda. I see Debbie is coming to the microphone, which is great because I can probably cross one of these things off my list then.
Very quickly, Kip, would you? It's my pleasure to present to you tonight. This has been on our website, but our printed annual report that has come out, and wanted to present it to the city and city council tonight. We had a challenging year with the fire last year, but we had a very productive year as well, and just wanted to present that to you tonight.
Anything about the chamber?
We do have our chamber annual dinner coming up next Friday evening. It is an evening safari that night, and we are looking forward to having a great evening. We'll be presenting a couple of Wagon Boss scholarships along with all of the special awards that we do. And we are bringing back our very first scholarship awardee. Joshua Davies is going to come back and talk to us about what it meant to him to be able to receive that scholarship and go on and complete his college career.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I knew you'd do that so much better than me reading this off the sheet, so thanks. Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to reports. I've got a few items here that I'll read as it relates to events coming up in the next couple weeks. On Saturday, March 9th, the Winters Farmer Market at the Ute Pass Cultural Center from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I think we're supposed to get some snow, so be careful if you're driving. The second item is Saturday night, March 9th. Be sure to spring forward. So we move to daylight savings time. Seems like that gets earlier every year. The next item is Tuesday, March 19th, the Chamber's Business After Hours at Keller Williams from 5:30 to 7. I should have asked Debbie to explain that one as well. And then the last item is Wednesday, March 20th, is the first annual Teller County Economic Forum Breakfast from 8 to 10 a.m. at the Ute Pass Cultural Center, featuring Betty Clark Wine, the Teller County Assessor, and Brad Spivey from Park State Bank. I'm sure that'll be great. It says it's free, and knowing Betty, she always does a great job, and Brad does as well, so that'll probably be something to take in. That's all I have this evening, Council. Yeah, we'll just go in order. Gary?
Historical preservation, we met again, and as a group of historical preservation people that walk the town and look for buildings in which to put some murals on, to kind of, broadcast the vision, if you will, or advertise the vision of our history of Woodland Park, and that's kind of what we're focusing on. Out of those, we prioritize some buildings. Next step is what we're doing is trying to get photographs and artifacts from the past so that we can design some murals, and then the step after that is go to prospective business owners who own these buildings and approach them and say, hey, we'd like to do a mural on your building, this is what we'd like to do. And then if that happens, then we go to the next step after that and get somebody to paint it and then actually put it on there. So look forward in the future to seeing some neat murals in town that depict some of our historical background. The Main Street program, we've also talked about that as well as in the DDA, and we're starting to forge ahead on that thing. We're going to have another DOLA meeting probably after we get a group of people together and the 4 committees that we want to designate for this thing as an umbrella to synergistically coordinate all the efforts of everybody that's doing such good work here in various divisions. We want to get them all together under one umbrella, and that's what the Main Street program does. I explained that the last time. Forging ahead on this, Brian, I think, is going to now put some names on those committee heads, form maybe a 501c. We've talked to a number of people. So that's progressing pretty fast, and we look forward to having that. Our next DOLA, I guess, presentation will be presented to that group of people who've signed on to participate in the Main Street program. And going out to the audience there, if you want to participate in this, we'd love to have you. This is a big deal for Woodland Park, and if you want to be part of it, you can call me on my website or whatever it is, or give Sally a call or Brian a call, and see if you can put some skin in the game, because this is going to be an exciting, I think, future for Woodland Park.
Thank you.
Quick question for, are we going to hire local artists to do the murals, or?
Yeah, basically, it's with Ralph Holloway and the Fine Arts Council and stuff like that, yeah. Maybe even high schools. Maybe even high schools, too. We haven't just designated that, because we haven't gotten to that stage yet.
So we're not at the graffiti stage?
Not at the graffiti stage.
Okay.
Bob?
Okay. I guess we'll get to the annual report later when we get.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I just had a quick intervention. You all recall that last summer, on the Woodland Aquatic project, I'd come to the council asking for $10,000 to do the business plan, because that was a very important step to have professionally done business plan. And one of the preconditions was to go do a rough feasibility analysis, which we then discussed on the 20th of September. That meeting didn't go very well, but what it did come out of that, though, was that we realized that there wasn't a lot of consensus about using general funds to do it. So we're looking at alternative sources from the strategic plan. We listed the second one being the 1% sales tax as roads. So David is doing pavement management plan, and we'll have a report back to us on that in April sometime. But the main reason I'm bringing this up tonight is during the discussion, when it came to the business plan itself, it was kind of freewheeling all over the place. But one of the comments was that it's too rough, and we don't have a record of that. So I'm giving this opportunity, because we do now have the $10,000. That's been what we've been doing for the last 6 months to try to find that $10,000 from private sources. And so we're one of the HHT Holiday Home Tour recipients, and so we're getting $5,700 approximately from them. And then through Brian's good graces, Jane Mannon up at the Cripple Creek Victor Mine is also donating $5,000 in matching grant. So we'll have a little over $10,000. So the Woodland Aquatic Project Board of Directors is going to be meeting next week to start out the business plan process. And what we would like to do is have it done at the same time. We'll have the pavement management plan, so we'll know how much the O&M is and how much membership revenues and all of that. But in that we don't have the record from that meeting on the 20th, if there's any concerns from anybody in the council, I mean, the business plan is being done by one of the ones that done most of the business plans for aquatic centers in Colorado. So it's going to be, the standard business plan. But if there's any input that anybody wants to provide us as to what they expect to see out of it, any precautionary notes, or you can even say, this is a dumb idea, we don't like it, I don't like it at all type of thing. If you would just provide us your comments, so we will provide that to the business plan developer as going in guidance into doing the plan. So if you would send me an email as soon as possible, early next week, perhaps, preferably, because we'll have our board meeting next week, probably the latter half of it. I'd appreciate that. Okay, so hopefully we'll have some progress soon.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Terry?
Not a thing.
Okay. Carol? John?
Nope.
All right. I think that brings us up to Aaron.
And I have nothing.
Okay, So, David?
Thank you. I have a quick report, and then Sally has a quick announcement. By charter, we're to prepare for the council and the community an annual report. We've done that. It's been presented to you. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and the cover has numerous pictures, and so there's tens of thousands of words on the cover, and it really does describe the year. Debbie mentioned that the Waldo Canyon fire was an impactful component of 2012. I would suggest to you that also was the Pro Cycling Challenge, the completion of Red Mountain Adventure Park, Woodland Hardware, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Family Dollar, the successful completion of a lot of pavement management, water planning, financial management. All of those things are incorporated into this annual report. It's available on our website, and there are copies that will be provided at the front desk of City Hall should folks not have the ability to get one off of the website. It's a staff document. We're standing by to answer any questions that you have. I don't intend to go any detail, but we're prepared to answer questions if you have them this evening.
Bob?
Just one quick question. I noticed that under the general fund unaudited expenditures, this year you've consolidated what previous years was 17 different categories into 7 categories. So it's like changing the baseline, or yeah. So is it possible? I like to see trends. You know, how much do we spend in previous years and that sort of thing. Is that an issue, or is it something that you could perhaps take the current 7 and provide maybe what the consolidation would have been in the previous years or something, so we have the same baseline?
Go ahead, Kelly.
I would just say that the data behind the graph is certainly available.
Okay.
And has unchanged. In order to make the graph not be so busy and have so many small slices of the pie, I've consolidated those into groupings that are similar. I'm happy to share the data behind that for you, and we can trend that. And I have that history for years going back.
Okay, great. That's enough. Yeah, that's all.
Any other questions this evening about the 2012 annual report? I'm sure staff would be more than happy to answer any questions offline as well.
No, thank you very, very much for the product. It's very professional. In fact, I printed copies off at work, and I gave them to 2 prospective home buyers. So.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Sally?
Sally has a quick announcement, and then we'll be done.
My announcement relates to a new development project that was just submitted last Friday. It is the Trail Ridge Apartment Complex for 168 units at 311 West Sheridan Avenue. And as part of, this is a use by right administrative review, but as part of the process, we're required to notify the City Council and the Planning Commission that this application has been submitted. You have an opportunity to take a look at the application if you so desire and make comments. The comment period will end on the 22nd of March. The property has been posted, and letters went out today to the surrounding property owners as well. So this is part of our standard process, and I'll hand these out to you after the meeting.
Thank you, Sally. Anything else, David?
No, that's all. Thank you.
All right. We have no written correspondence. It is 9:20, and we will adjourn the meeting.
John, can you take me?
Yeah.